All right, so this, of course, is the big moment of India's soft power projection. Now, today is International Yoga Day, and as the world is observing International Day of Yoga, the Indian Prime Minister is at the United Nations headquarters as a part of his ongoing US state visit.
हमें योग के जरिए हमारे अंतर विरोधों को खत्म करना है। हमें योग के जरिए हमारे गतिरोधों और प्रतिरोधों को भी खत्म करके रहना है। हमें एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत की भावना को विश्व के सामने एक उदाहरण के रूप में प्रस्तुत करना है।
Now, according to reports, participants from more than 180 different countries will be observing the 9th year of the Yoga Day celebrations with the Indian leader in New York. Meanwhile, in India, several top leaders mark the day with community yoga sessions across the country. The Indian President Draupadi Murmu and also the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh led public celebrations of International Yoga Day.
अपनी अंगुलियों को आपस में मिलाते हुए अपनी कलाई सांस लेते हुए घुटने सीधे करें एक बार पुनः दोहराएं।
And every year, International Yoga Day centers around a theme chosen by the United Nations, which highlights a specific aspect of yoga and also its impact on society. The theme for 2023 is Yoga for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Now, this, of course, means the world is one family. The theme brings out yoga's role in bringing the world together.
श्वास छोड़ते हुए धीरे-धीरे गर्दन को नीचे लाइए। जिन्हें सर्वाइकल की समस्या हो, गर्दन को सामान्य स्थिति में रखें। एक बार पुनः श्वास भरते हुए गर्दन ऊपर उठाइए।
All right, and also to give us a sense of what, of course, is happening at this moment in the United States of America, we're being joined in by our correspondents, Molly Gambhir, Siddhant Civil, and also Susan Tehrani. Now, Molly, let me in fact begin with you. This, of course, is the big moment. This is International Yoga Day, and the Indian Prime Minister will be at the United Nations in just a while from now, leading the Yoga Day celebrations.
Indeed, a full-fledged display of India's soft power, Saleh, and look at what a grand occasion this really is. Now, this is the 9th International Yoga Day, and the journey as far as yoga and India's soft power is concerned has grown immensely in popularity. Not just here in the United States have we seen the impact of that, but around the world. And the way the Indian Prime Minister has been pushing for yoga as a practice, in fact, since 2014, since the time that he pushed for International Yoga Day to be institutionalized, we were in fact speaking to the United Nations General Assembly President just ahead of this grand occasion, who was telling us about how excited he is himself to be a part of this occasion and praising India's role as well on this front. Now, we're going to see this event being attended by eminent personalities from nearly 180 countries, and the enthusiasm we saw firsthand, in fact, at the North Lawn of the UN headquarters in the run-up to the event as well. The preparations that have been underway in full swing, no stone has been left, leaving no stone unturned to make sure that this is an occasion to remember. It is an unprecedented event, Saleh, with the Indian Prime Minister present inside the UN headquarters at the North Lawn to actually lead the Yoga Day celebrations.
Absolutely, indeed. Molly, do continue to stay on with us. And Siddhant, if I can bring you in on this. Now, yoga is something that we need to perform for a healthy life probably every single day of our lives. But the fact that it is now, being celebrated internationally is something that people should look at to try and improve their health. Give us a sense of what the people there right now at the United Nations lawn have to say about how yoga is an important and an inherent part of their life.
Well, Mohammed, I'm standing inside the UN headquarters, and just in front of me, the preparations are underway. The Indian Prime Minister is expected to arrive in few minutes from now, and it will be a star-studded affair. Richard Gere will be present along with the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly President as well. I spoke to some of the people while we were coming earlier today inside the UN headquarters, and many of the people are present. Many of them Indian Americans are quite excited to take part in this mega initiative, mega event happening in UN headquarters. We do see yoga happening on an annual basis since it was announced way back in 2014 in UN headquarters, but this time it's little different given that it's being led by the Indian Prime Minister. Yoga is already very popular, but Prime Minister Narendra Modi's popularity adds another layer to the entire event, which is underway. In fact, it has now started as well, but essentially we will see the message by the Indian Prime Minister and of course other dignitaries who are present as well. I can now hear that it looks like most of the dignitaries have started to arrive. Richard Gere has also arrived inside the UN headquarters. We will also see the Deputy United Nations Secretary General also present and of course leading the Yoga Day celebrations. Diplomats from most of the countries are present. We are still awaiting the list of the entire countries who are participating, and India has sent invites to all the permanent representatives here to participate in the Yoga Day celebrations. And essentially, this is a 1 hour event that is due to begin shortly.
Absolutely, indeed, Siddhant. Do continue to stay on with us, and let me bring in our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, who's been patiently standing by. Now, Susan, yoga is essentially a form of exercise with a special emphasis in terms of how one controls one's breath. Now, this is something that's been very popular for ages. Give us a sense of how popular is yoga within the popular culture in the United States.
That's absolutely a fantastic question. It's so prevalent and so popular, and it becomes more popular and popularized throughout the years while Americans have been practicing yoga for decades. We always talk about a post-pandemic world or even during the pandemic and the lockdowns. And so how many people really decided to take on yoga because the gyms were closed and because, it only required a mat. And a lot of people wanted to connect with themselves, go inward, move their bodies at the same time. And we hear time and again how much really that helped people, notably during the lockdowns, as I mentioned. And then post-pandemic, we see that spirit of yoga continuing. And I think it's prevalent really today, as you see behind me, where the stage is set for Prime Minister Modi to come, how popularized it's become even among dignitaries and delegates here at the United Nations. And it's no really coincidence that Prime Minister Modi wanted to bring yoga and the pillars of yoga in a multilateral setting at the United Nations at a time when there is so much turbulence. So a perfect time, perfect place and venue. And we're really looking forward to seeing how all of this unfolds, but absolutely very popular. So many fans around the world.
Absolutely, indeed. And yoga is, of course, India's gift to the world. And the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, remember, is not the first Prime Minister who, of course, pushed out yoga as such an important and an inherent part of life that people can adopt to lead a healthy life. The first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, was also a yoga enthusiast, and there's this picture of him performing the Shirshasana. It is an iconic yoga pose, and the picture of the first Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru is something that is brought on time and again to emphasize the importance and as to how intricate and how difficult sometimes yoga can be. Molly, if I can, of course, all right, there seems to be a bit of an issue in the line with my colleague Molly, and Siddhant, if I can bring you in on this. Despite the fact that India has been talking about yoga and how yoga has also been inculcated as a part of the school curriculum for children through the decades, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has, of course, made it a sort of a mission for himself to try and send across the message as to how important yoga can be for everyone around the world, to inculcate it as a part of their regular everyday habit.
Well, yes, the Indian Prime Minister has put it like this way, because essentially well, yoga was quite popular. Everyone were essentially doing yoga, taking part in yoga activities. But since 2014, well, it was kind of institutionalized. There was a format. Many yoga essentially schools opened across the world. And, for example, let's talk about West Asia. We know that there was a certain hesitancy when it comes to yoga in West Asia, but it looks like that hesitancy has gone. We have seen visuals of Yoga Day celebrations coming from West Asia. In fact, there is a lady, North Barwai, who has been leading the...
Right.
Yeah, she is the person who has opened the first yoga days and yoga school, and of course leading the Yoga Day celebration throughout the day in Saudi Arabia. So that shows that how popular it has become in West Asia. And now we know that it's spread across the world, from India to the world. Perhaps it can be termed as India's gift to the humanity.
Absolutely, indeed. That's exactly how to put it. Yoga happens to be India's gift to humanity. It is something that belongs to everyone. And this is something that's been extremely popular, not just now, not just in the last decade, but for several years. And this is what a lot of people, in fact, do. Every time they wake up in the morning, they perform the different asanas of yoga to stay fit and to stay healthy. And this is something that's been adopted by pop singers such as Madonna, or even Michelle Obama is a practitioner of yoga. And Susan, if I can bring you in on this, give us a sense of the celebrities who are likely to take part at the Yoga Day celebrations at the United Nations headquarters in a few moments from now.
To take part, we have a number of celebrities from India taking part as well. The Indian American diaspora themselves, many had been invited, and they told us about that. And then you have high-ranking official delegates, ambassadors also taking part. And, half jokingly, they were speaking with the organizers and saying that, they hope that Prime Minister Modi won't really practice any difficult poses, because many of them are not as limber and lean as someone that regularly practices yoga. So, it's a whole wide variety of people from all walks of life. They are going to be joining, but definitely a lot of well-known individuals as well, which also, again, influencers, online influencers, which again really sets the stage for yoga to even become more mainstream.
Absolutely, indeed. And let me bring in my colleague, Molly Gambhir, who's joining us from New York. I hope we've got the line fixed with them. Molly, the fact is, outside of India, it is in the United States of America that we find the maximum number of yoga practitioners. And according to data, this is what is being said, that nearly about 36 million people in the United States, in fact, practice yoga as a part of their day-to-day lives. And the fact that the Indian Prime Minister is championing the practice of yoga and, spreading the message that it is important for people to inculcate yoga into their daily lives. This makes him a sort of a fitness icon, doesn't it?
Indeed, Saleh, and I think that is aptly summarized through the theme for the International Yoga Day this year, which is Yoga for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is yoga for one world, one family. And that essentially describes the very fabric of this event and the message that it sends out, which is to unite the world through the practice of yoga, and also unite yourself. The oneness with yourself that yoga emphasizes on, and the unison of the mind, body and spirit, of course, for mental health being. And the benefits of yoga have been talked about also by through the yoga experts we've been speaking to, and the very fact that we have yoga as a practice which is very much prevalent here in New York as well, as my colleague Susan has been pointing out. The very fact that it has grown in popularity not just here in New York but across the United States and across the world over the past few years, and how India has been spearheading those efforts as well. And that is, of course, symbolic through this event here at the United Nations headquarters as well. And look at how unprecedented it is with the Indian Prime Minister, who himself has been the leader as far as the institutionalization of Yoga Day is concerned, is leading the celebrations. We have the UNGA president attending the event, who, by the way, was also mentioning how his daughter is a yoga practitioner, and we've seen that yoga is no longer considered as a practice which is not known about, or which is something which is distant, but has become a part of people's everyday lives in some way or the other.
Absolutely, indeed. And Susan, let me bring you in on this. Now, the Americans, of course, take yoga very seriously. And according to data that's available, it is said that there are nearly about 6,000 yoga studios across the United States of America. And Americans, on an average, spend about $16 billion in terms of the money on yoga classes, on equipment and other accessories every single year. So in the United States of America, yoga appears to be extremely popular, and the trend seems to be catching on more and more.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And as you mentioned, some 36 million Americans practice yoga regularly. That's about 10% of the population, although there are those that practice sporadically. I mean, we have to take those numbers into consideration as well. But also, you know, it's very interesting that we see this wellness industry and the mindful industry really explode in recent years here in the United States and the Western world. And one of the main pillars and the reasons for that really was the popularization of yoga and then meditation as well. And so these sort of went hand in hand, and they created an industry that's very lucrative. And through those practices, through the practice of yoga and meditation, then you have different branches that really expanded. And so, yes, it is a very lucrative business. On the one hand, people are willing to spend money on it a lot more than perhaps they were before. And it's really caught on. It's a trend, but it's also something that people see the results very quickly. And it's really a practice for everyone, and not really all those people that are gym buffs, so to say, but any individual. And I think people see that, and they like the non-judgmental aspect of it as well.